Joining us now, Eugene Robinson, Washington Post columnist, and Mieke Eoyang, Vice President for Third Way's National Security Program. Mieke, let me begin with you, if I can, and we'll try to compare apples to apples here. Secretary of State back in 2012 did not attend the DNC. She was actually watching it from East Timor, had no involvement whatsoever in that convention. Let's fast forward to 2020, and you see Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State now, taking part in the convention while on a taxpayer-funded trip overseas to Jerusalem. The New York Times reports, quote, some of Mr. Trump's aides, they've privately scoffed at the Hatch Act and say they take pride in violating its regulations. What is the point of this law, Mieke, if it has no teeth and no one enforces it?
Yeah, the reason that we have the Hatch Act is to put a real separation between governing and politics. Politics is how you get into power, and governing is how you exercise power. And you want those things to be separate so that people are not trying to use the powers of government to be able to keep themselves in office. And what's so dangerous about what Pompeo did is that traditionally we've thought with diplomacy, politics stops at the water's edge. What happens with other countries in our diplomacy is about America. It's not about one particular party. And instead of stopping at the water's edge, he actually took politics, flew it across an ocean, and plunked it right down in the middle of one of the most delicate, sensitive political conflicts or geopolitical conflicts that the nation deals with.
Eugene, I wanted to ask you about another aspect of the RNC last night, and that was the naturalization ceremony with 5 new citizens. Obviously, a very important event in the life of any immigrant. I've gone through that myself. But I'm curious to get your thoughts about this because it was perceived as being highly political, and certainly the use of the White House, even a potential violation of the Hatch Act for DHS Secretary Chad Wolf. But here's how the White House is kind of getting around this. They're saying the White House publicized the content of both events on a public website this afternoon, and the campaign decided to use the publicly available content for campaign purposes. There was no violation of the law. What do you make of that? The fact that they found this little loophole, they put it on a website, and then they say, hey, it's up to the campaign.
Well, that's ridiculous. It's not a loophole at all. In fact, the event was staged earlier in the day so that it could be recorded and then used in the campaign. So that's ridiculous. But here's the thing about norms and precedents. When you get rid of a norm, it's really hard to get it back. And if you set a precedent, it's really hard to get rid of it. And so, the precedent is being set right now that the Hatch Act is essentially meaningless, that it's toothless, that it will not be pursued, that violating it is just up to you. If you feel like blowing off the Hatch Act, just go ahead and do it. And that's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube. It really is. And so maybe not the next president, but some future president will feel comfortable and perfectly justified in doing these same kinds of things. It's very dangerous, but this is not the first time the Trump administration has lived dangerous.
Gene, the vice president is slated to speak tonight. Do you think he's going to continue the dark themes against the Democrats we've seen in the past 2 days, that kind of mixed messaging where they're saying they want to unite the country, but then go after Joe Biden, go after the Democrats? Or do you think he'll do something different?
No, I think it'll be dark. I think he'll continue that theme because that's what the speakers are saying, except for Melania Trump, who tried to do something slightly different. That's basically what everybody speaking at the convention has done so far. So I expect Vice President Pence to tell us how dangerous it would be to have Democrats in the White House, and how awful and how vulnerable we would all be, especially those suburban housewives. I think it will be more on the same theme.
Mieke, I got to get your thoughts on this as well. The president, he's obviously made appearances every night so far, or at least in some capacity part of the RNC, expected to make one again tonight. We know that apprentice producers have been helping plan this convention, believe it or not. What's been the point of him appearing every night? Is it just a stark reminder that at the end of the day, this is all about Trump?
Yeah, he's the biggest name they've got. Nobody else in the party seems to want to have anything to do with his convention and are staying very far away from it. So they really don't have anyone else that's a household name to draw people's eyeballs. At the same time, it's sort of like a car crash. You can't help but watch because you know eventually he's going to go off the rails. And so I think that there is some drama in that. And he loves the spotlight and he wants it to be about him.
Are you at all concerned that as we go forward to Eugene's point, that Democrats, if they do win the White House, are they going to be tempted to use the White House in the same way? Are we, as Gene said, we're breaking norms and precedents here?
I don't think that Biden-Harris administration would do that. They are very much committed to rule of law and to returning things to a more normal course of government, to governing in the interests of all Americans and not putting politics first like that. So I can't imagine that they would do it. But in the future, would another Democrat misuse the office that way? It's possible. And so this is a question to Congress about how to put some more guardrails on the politicization of governing.
Yeah, one more thing Congress will have to do. Mieke, Eoyang, Eugene Robinson, thank you both for joining me this hour.